Army won 11 games for the first time in school history and now enters 2019 on a 9-game win streak. Can they keep up that success in 2019? Find out here on the Gridiron Expert.
Yeah.
Jeff Monken is entering his 6th season at West Point, and the job that he has done there, especially the past 2 seasons, has been unbelievable. Army has won 13 straight home games, and as we mentioned, is on a 9-game winning streak going into 2019. They won 11 games for the first time in program history last year, and they also have won 3 consecutive bowl games for the first time in school history, capped off by that dominating 70-14 win over Houston in last year's Armed Forces Bowl. Army, in my opinion, is absolutely a top 25 team and could very well be in contention for a NY6 Bowl Game at the end of the season. The Black Knights will be led by their returning quarterback in Kelvin Hopkins, who rushed for over 1,000 yards and 17 touchdowns last year, but also threw for 6 touchdowns as well. The offensive line, though, is going to be one of the strengths for Army this year, returning 3 starters, but all 5 of those offensive linemen will be upperclassmen. And that is so important for Army that's going to be running that option offense and that dominant running game that we've seen from basically all military academies. So Army should not see much of a step back offensively this year, with Hopkins back with an experienced offensive line and 7 starters returning overall. Defensively, though, they just returned 4 starters, but they have one of the best defenses in the nation last year, allowing just 17.7 points per game. But they lose their defensive coordinator in Jay Bateman, who left to go join Matt Brown's staff over at North Carolina. So they're going to have to adjust with a brand new coordinator, but I still expect this defense to be solid once again at West Point. Cole Christensen, the number 2 tackler for Army last year, comes back and will lead the linebacking core and will absolutely be a leader for the defense as a whole. And while I do think those points per game numbers will increase a little bit, they will still be dominant once again. And when you take a look at Army's schedule here, you can see that there are probably a lot of games up here that if Army performs the way they did last year, we can mark down as automatic wins. And we already have 3 against Rice, Morgan State, and the Virginia Military Institute. But of course, we're not going to mark down wins for all of these right now. We're going to give you our solid analysis like we always do. But the first game that we're going to break down is the road game at Michigan. And for many teams, this is the trendy upset pick of the season. And I can see why. If you remember last year, Army took Oklahoma and Kyler Murray, that dominant offense last year, to overtime in Norman. Fell to the Sooners 28-21 in overtime. But I think that game truly showed that this Army team needed to be taken seriously. And they could very well be in the mood for an upset here in Ann Arbor at the Big House. Michigan will have one of the best defenses in the entire nation. No doubt in my mind, it's been that way for the past few seasons. But I think their offense is finally going to take that extra step forward under Jim Harbaugh. They've been kind of mediocre at times the past few years. But Shea Patterson is back. They're going to have a solid running game once again. Shea Patterson finally has his crew of wide receivers. Michigan is not only a Big Ten title contender, but also a college football playoff contender. The defense, I think, will struggle throughout the first half against this Army offense that is difficult for any defense to stop. But I think the Wolverines make the right adjustments, beat Army, but this game will probably be decided by 14 points or less. So don't rule out the Black Knights in this one, but I think they do fall to the Wolverines in that trendy upset pick that a lot of people are going with. But I have them falling to Michigan just to be 1-1 on the season. They then go on the road to Texas San Antonio, facing off against a Conference USA opponent. And a lot of people like to say that if Army maybe upsets Michigan and then runs the table and goes 13-0, because they do play 13 games, could you consider them a college football playoff contender? And the answer to that is no, because outside of this Michigan game and maybe that Navy game, their strength of schedule is one of the worst in the entire nation. Michigan is by far the toughest game on Army's schedule, so they will not be a college football playoff contender if they run the table and go undefeated, but will absolutely make a NY6 Bowl Game. But they're playing against Texas San Antonio, a team that went 3-9 last year, a team that I do think will improve, especially in Conference USA play, but not enough to make a bowl game, I don't think. Army should go on the road and take fairly easy care of the Roadrunners. They're 2-1, 3-1 with a win against Morgan State. Then they get a game against Tulane coming off a bye week because they have 3 bye weeks. We weren't able to put all of them up here on the schedule. But they have a bye week on the 28th, get Tulane at home on October 5th. And this is one of the toughest tests, I think, on Army's schedule. And if you go back and look at Army last year, they had that narrow loss to Oklahoma, had a narrow win against Hawaii, had a narrow win against Miami, Ohio. So they had a couple tough tests in there last season. And Tulane could be one of those teams in 2019. Willie Fritz took Tulane to a bowl game for the first time since 2013 and dominated Louisiana in that bowl game to finish 7-6. This year, they're going to have another team that I think could get back to a bowl game. They returned 5 starters offensively, including their quarterback Justin McMillian, who is absolutely the real deal in the American Athletic Conference. They returned 8 starters defensively and could shut down this Army offense a little bit. But in the end, with this game being at home, coming off a week of rest, I think they get the win against Tulane. Expect it to be close. Very similar to that Hawaii game last year, which was just 28-21 in favor of Army. But I think they get the win over Tulane, and they are 4-1. They then get 2 road games in a row, going on the road to Western Kentucky and then Georgia State. Western Kentucky brings in a brand new coach, and Tyson Helton, the brother of Clay Helton, the head coach at USC. Western Kentucky and the Hilltoppers returned 10 starters offensively and could give this Army defense a bit of a test. But Western Kentucky was very uncompetitive last year in 2018 with a brand new head coach with brand new schemes coming in. Even though this game is on the road, I think the Black Knights take care of the Hilltoppers in this one, get a win on the road. They then go to Georgia State, and this team out of the Sun Belt absolutely has the potential to get to a bowl game. I'm a huge fan of Sean Elliott because of the fire and the intensity that he brings for every single game. If you've ever watched that guy on the sidelines, he's just so much fun to watch, and that's why these Georgia State players play so hard for him. It's because the intensity and the passion that he has for the game. This team has the potential to get to a bowl game, much like I said about maybe Texas San Antonio. But in the end, Army, across the board, still has way too much talent, way too much speed for the Panthers. They do go on the road and beat Sean Elliott and his Georgia State squad. They then come back home finally, facing off against San Jose State on October 26th. And San Jose State, once again, going to be picked as one of the worst teams in the Mountain West Conference. While the team should improve statistically and maybe competitively, I don't see them getting anywhere more than 3, maybe even 4 wins in 2019. They're going to struggle once again this season, and one of those losses will come to Army. I don't see the Black Knights struggling in this game whatsoever. And if they do, they're going to have some issues down the stretch with tough games against Air Force, Hawaii, and then, of course, that rivalry game against Navy. But we have them beating San Jose State. And you look at this schedule, once again, Army just a 1-loss team, the lone loss coming to Michigan, and hopefully that is a respectable loss, as we predicted, by 14 points or less. They then get Air Force on the road, and this is absolutely one of the toughest games on Army's schedule as well, a game that they could lose. They beat the Falcons last year 17-14. And I would say that Army and Michigan, or Air Force and Michigan, are probably the 2 toughest tests on Army's schedule right now. I think both of those being road games. Michigan, of course, out of the Power 5 and just the talent they have there. But Air Force, because those military schools always play well against one another. Rivalry games, of course. But this is one of the best Air Force teams that we've seen in recent years. And Troy Calhoun has slowly built this team up. Last year, a disappointing 5-7 season. This year, a team that could contend for a Mountain West title and should certainly go bowling in 2019. Their offense put up 30.3 points per game last year, which will be a test for this Army defense. Yes, they held them to 14 points last year, but they lose a lot of playmakers and then lose their defensive coordinator. And Air Force's defense only had allowed 25.8 points per game last year. And with about 7 returning starters coming back, I expect those numbers to improve. This is a super, super tough test for Army, but I think Kelvin Hopkins, the experience at the quarterback position, and the defense that, yes, has to deal with a new defensive coordinator, yes, will have to kind of rebuild and reload defensively, should have worked a lot of things out by November 2nd. I think they get a narrow win over the Falcons, much like we saw last year, 17-14. Army gets the win over Air Force and then takes easy care of UMass, a team that is going to really struggle in 2019, losing their top 3 playmakers on offense and their quarterback Andrew Ford, running back Marquise Young, and their wide receiver Andy Isabella, who was one of the best wide receivers in the entire nation last year. UMass is dealing with a brand new coach in Walt Bell. Their defense allowed 42.9 points per game last year. They're going to struggle mightily. A major rebuilding year for the Minutemen, and Army gets a win there. They get a win over VMI as well, so once again, just a one-loss team. Get a bye week on November 23rd, and then go on the road to face off against Hawaii. Now, anytime a team has to travel to Hawaii, I am very cautious when picking that team. Because for me, that is a tough place to play. Even if Army is not a good team, regardless of where you're coming from, it's a long flight. Hawaii, one of those places that's a vacation destination. Sometimes your focus might not be in the right place. And unfortunately for Army, this Hawaii team is one of the best that we have seen in recent years, very similar to that Air Force team. They returned 18 starters, 9 on offense, 9 on defense, and Cole McDonald is the real deal, putting up some huge numbers last year, over 3,800 yards passing and 36 touchdowns. And I think this passing attack is really going to give this Army secondary a test. Probably their toughest test of the season outside of Michigan when it comes to the aerial attack. And I'm predicting Hawaii to get a huge upset over the Black Knights. They nearly came on the road last year and beat them, falling 28-21. Army getting a stop in the red zone last year. And I think Hawaii gets their revenge on them behind a dominant passing attack from Cole McDonald. It'll be a rough start for Hawaii to the season. They'll finish strong. Last year they started strong, finished weak. It's going to be the exact opposite. The Rainbow Warriors get a huge win over Army, and they take their second loss of the season here. They then get a bye week, of course, on December 7th. Then on December 14th, the only game on that Saturday, facing off against their rival in Navy. And Army has won the past 3 games against the Midshipmen by a combined 12 points. That's how close these games have been against Navy. And I expect this game to be close again, because what do we do when you're facing off against a rival? You throw records out the window. And last year, Navy went 3-10 and still gave Army a huge fight in that bowl game. And I think out of all the rivalries, Army and Navy is one of the most competitive, and it doesn't matter what these guys' records are, you're going to have a fight between both of these schools. Navy will improve big time in 2019. No doubt in my mind. They're going to take a major step forward. It was a down year for them, but they're going to return to the normal Navy ways and should go bowling in 2019. But once again, I believe that Army has way too much. Their defense, both very similar offenses, and that's why most of these games are fairly low scoring between the Black Knights and the Midshipmen. But Kelvin Hopkins owns the edge at quarterback. Army owns the edge on the offensive line. It's a game that will be won in the trenches. Army has the advantage there, and they will beat Navy for the 4th straight year. So with this win, Army will finish the season 11-2, because like I said, they do play 13 games in 2019. And at 11-2, they are absolutely in contention for a NY6 Bowl Game. And if they can win their bowl game, will have 12 wins for the first time in school history. So that would be the 3rd straight year that Jeff Monken and his Black Knights would have set a school record for wins in a season. They had 10 2 years ago, 11 last year, and with a bowl win this year, we'll have 12. And once again, a phenomenal job well done by Monken at West Point. Watch out for Army in 2019. They are absolutely the real deal. Guys, as always, thank you for watching us here on YouTube. Go follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Gridiron Expert. And of course, check out our official website, thegridironexpert.com. Sign up for our newsletter and sign up for our expert picks. For just $30, you will receive every single one of our 2019 college football spread picks, including the postseason. And I can promise you that's a deal you do not want to pass up. So join our team, sign up today only at thegridironexpert.com. And once again, thank you for watching us here on YouTube. Please continue to like, comment, and subscribe. And we will see you next time on The Gridiron Expert.